everyone. Thanks for joining me again on Grit Machine DNA podcast. Today I'm joined by Skip Soderholm. He is a 25-year Army veteran, special operations, incredible American, husband, father, entrepreneur, and somebody who's just going to inspire you. Skip, welcome to Grit Machine DNA.
Thank you, David. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime. I am just blown away to have you here. We're seriously incredibly honored to have you here at our home. Let's dive right in.
Right.
So the first question I like to ask my guests is, who are you?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm a husband to my amazing wife, Shirley, a father to my son, Thomas, Chris, and Jamie. And, really everything that's kind of led up to now has been a journey to make me that person. That's really who I am. So I grew up in Oregon mostly. My parents were divorced when I was really very young. My mom got remarried to my stepfather, and we grew up in a kind of middle-class household. My dad was a lawyer. My mom was a home economist. Kind of some of the interesting parts of my childhood, we moved to the South Pacific when I was about 12 years old. Yeah, we lived in a little group of islands called Micronesia, and so I gotta move out there. I gotta be a minority, which was an interesting piece of my childhood. An interesting way to grow up. But that really kind of shaped a lot of who I am today. And then while I was out there, while I was 12 years old, my father, my biological father, passed away, and so very challenging part of my life. But it kind of helped make me who I am today. I ended up moving back to the States when I was about 16. I lived in Alaska for a year, and then kind of graduated high school in Eastern Oregon. Went to college for a couple of years, and then decided that wasn't really the best thing for me, and so I joined the military.
That's cool.
I joined to be an Army Ranger, which is what my father was, and I was lucky enough to make it through that process, and I spent 4 years in the Army Rangers, and then I tried out for a different special operations unit, and was fortunate enough to make it, and I spent the remainder of my 25 years in that organization.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Skip.
Thanks.
So I want to pause for a second because you referenced a phrase that I had not heard in years. Your mother was a home economist.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What is that?
So I guess that was a term from the 80s, right? I think it was, at the time, it was what housewives called themselves.
Yeah.
I'm a home economist because it's exactly what you are. You're managing a household budget. You're feeding, clothing. You're doing everything for the household. My mom actually went to school. She taught cooking classes at colleges. She did a lot of those things. She taught me how to cook at a really young age, and it's something I still enjoy doing a lot.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I paused there because and not only is it important for both of you and I, my upbringing, but for millions of Americans. I mean, big shout out to mothers. Right?
Yeah.
Big shout out to the quote unquote stay-at-home moms. Hardest job on the planet.
Oh, very hard.
So,
Tough job.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. So I want to ask another question. What defines Skip?
So that's if you would have asked me that about 3 years ago, I would say it was being an American, and that still does. It defines a huge part of my life. It's something I'm incredibly proud of. When I joined the military, I swore to give my life for my country. So I think that's a big part of it. What I've kind of grown into more and more is being a husband and a father. It was a battle I had when I was in the military. I honestly put the military first quite a bit.
Wow.
And there were times that I had to go away a lot, and I just put that part of my life. I felt it was very important, and I probably prioritized that over my family. And so now that I'm out of the military, and I see that I honestly didn't expect to live through it. I didn't expect to live through almost 20 years of war. And now that I have, it puts a whole new perspective on life. And you realize what's really important is the people that you surround yourself with, which is my family. So, I think that's what defines me. Yeah.
I love that, Skip. Thank you for sharing. We're going to cover a lot more ground around that. But here, the context here for the reader, the listeners, or the viewers is, you're somebody who had committed his life to protecting our freedoms for over 2 decades. And the end state, the end result of it is family should always come first.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. So let me ask about, you talked a little bit about your upbringing. I want to let's give the viewers and listeners a context here. What big events shaped your life? You said you went into the military after this incredible experience, etc. Your father, military. What shaped your early life to lead you to that decision?
So I think it was several things. First of all, my father dying. I wanted to make him proud of me. I knew he was looking down on me, and I wanted him to see what I was doing and to be proud of me. Yeah. And so, he served in the military. He was a Ranger in Vietnam, and so that really drove me to join the military. I knew I was going to join the military. I knew I wanted to. But I decided I was going to go to college. So that was probably the first thing. Second thing is I found out that I could endure hardships pretty well. I was pretty resilient. I grew up in the islands. Like I said, I had kids that wanted to fight me because I was white, and I learned how to endure that and how to be resilient to that. Probably one of the most defining moments of my life was a failure. So I was in my second year of college. I was working full-time at McDonald's. I had a wife and 2 children at the time. That was my ex-wife. And I was going to school full-time. And I failed out of college. And I remember, I had to go kind of plead for my life in front of a board of college professors and, kind of give them the reason, why I wasn't progressing academically. And I remember thinking, this is going to change my life. Whatever happens here, I knew it was a defining moment. And I didn't get accepted to continue on. And I thought, wow, my life is over. And it turns out it was just beginning, because if it weren't for that, I don't know that I would have joined the military, which I think really was my calling. I think that was what I was supposed to do. It was something I was pretty good at. And so kind of through failure, sometimes what seems like, the end of the world, something that, this is just the worst thing for me, ends up being the best thing for you. So I think those are kind of some of the key things that really shaped the rest of my life from that day forward.
What a defining moment.
Yeah.
I love the big 2 takeaways for me. The first one is you failed.
Yeah.
You failed, but you didn't give up.
Yeah. I didn't let that define me, though.
It didn't define you. And then the second takeaway is it wasn't the end state. You moved on to the next thing and persevered.
Yeah.
What an incredible lesson. So, Skip, let me poke at that a little bit. You talked about perseverance, and you could persevere and endure hardship. Not to position you a little bit, but this is an important trait that I talk a lot about: grit, perseverance.
Yeah.
Did you learn that? How did that happen?
I don't know how I learned. I think growing up in the islands kind of helped shape that a little bit. Yeah. I walked around with no shoes on for 3 or 4 years, and so I learned how to just accept pain. Yeah. And there's a lot of things are painful. Where it started to shape me was basic training. You learn it right off the bat. They say to embrace the suck, and what that means is you learn how to endure hardship. Yeah. And you get better and better at it. It's not something that you're born with and that you're natural at. I remember being in basic training and thinking, this is going to be easy. Everybody says basic training's hard, but this isn't going to be hard for me. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Wow.
I mean, just you're away from your family, you're away from home. It's a whole new culture. You're with people that, don't necessarily share your values. You're getting yelled at a lot. You're walking a long way with a lot of weight on your back. And you get blisters on your feet, your shoulders ache, and you learn to endure. I wanted to quit several times, and I just told myself I'll quit tomorrow. And then tomorrow would come, and usually it'd be better. And if it wasn't, I'll quit tomorrow. So I think that's really where I started to learn how to have grit and what grit was. And then as I continued on in my career, I went through a number of challenges. I challenged myself to do bigger and better things. To join the Ranger Battalion, I had to do a 3-week selection course. There was a lot of running, rucking, a lot of heavy weights.
Most people don't know what rucking is, by the way. You might want to explain that.
Yeah, so rucking is putting on a giant backpack with everything really that you need to conduct a mission, which ranges from 40 to 100 pounds, and walking a long way, usually 10 plus miles. And it sounds pretty easy, but it wears on you. And you're also in military uniform. It's usually hot. It's always hot. Your feet always blister because the boots that you wear, they rub wrong, and so your feet are raw. And you learn how to become numb to that, and
you build resilience.
You build resilience, exactly. You build grit.
One thing I loved about what you said, though, is I'll quit tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
My mindset, not that it compares in any way, but I remember high school and college football, my mindset was, I'm not quitting.
Yeah.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
But you said, I'll quit tomorrow. Walk me through that. I love that logic.
As hard as people are, everybody wants to quit sometimes. It's natural. It's human nature.
Yeah.
And so that was how I figured out to keep going. Is I'm not going to quit today. I can endure this one more day. If I can do this, if I can go this far, I can go one more day.
Yeah.
And if you can keep telling yourself that, you can keep going, and it's going to get better. Eventually, it's going to get better. And so. Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite messages to young people, especially, is there's going to be hardships. There's going to be days that we don't want to go on, and we don't want to keep doing what we're doing, and we want to quit. We want to go hide. Just do it tomorrow.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah,
I'll quit tomorrow.
I love
that, man. It's going to be one of my takeaways from this whole interview, man. So we talked a little bit about the journey to service, etc. I want to ask a question I asked to most of the folks that I've interviewed that have been in the service. Can you walk us through some of the most important learning lessons from your time in the service?
Yeah, I think...
sorry, Skip. The context here, again, is for the listeners and viewers, here is this incredibly robust, hardcore guy who has transitioned incredibly into civilian life and has so many experiences. Let's talk about what are the key defining takeaways. Here are the key lessons that I would impart to the folks listening. What are they?
So here's number one, and I told you this story earlier, but I think it's important. When I showed up to basic training, I was on a Ranger contract, meaning I was going to be given the opportunity to go through this Ranger program. I may not pass, but they were going to give me the opportunity. And when I showed up, there was this old hard drill sergeant who was a Ranger, and he lined everybody up. He said, "All right, where's my Rangers? Where's the guys with Ranger contracts?" And we stepped forward. And he lined us up, and he went through and he looked at every one of us, and he said, "Yeah, you'll probably make it. You'll probably make it." He came to me and he said, "Yeah, you're not going to make it." And I remember thinking, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I didn't let that define me. I didn't accept that. And so I think first and foremost is believe in yourself. It happened again when I went to try out for the special operations unit that I served in. I was very young. I was 24 years old. I showed up, and this is one of the hardest things you can do in the military. This selection. It's basically a year-long job interview. Probably the hardest job interview in the world. And I remember I showed up for this, and I remember looking around, thinking, "What have I gotten myself into?" Because these guys are big, strong men. I'm barely, kind of a kid still. I was 24. I was young. I was not as big as these guys. I was much smaller. And I remember thinking, man, I don't know if I bit off more than I can chew. And I didn't let that define me though. And at the end of it, at the end of the second day, most of those big guys were gone, and I was still there, and I was there at the end of it. And so, believe in yourself. I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned is, people can judge you all they want. You hear don't judge a book by its cover, but I think more important than that is believe in yourself, know your capability, know that, if you can do anything, if you put your mind to it, if you have enough grit, you can do anything. So
totally agree.
Yeah.
There's another lesson I hear in that. There is believe in yourself, but there's also having the vision and the perseverance. In other words, you were setting goals, objectives, and you're working really hard to get to those objectives, right?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
The underlying theme too. There's believe in yourself, but there's defined goals, and then you're going to work your butt off to get those done.
Oh yeah, and it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
And anything worth doing isn't easy.
Yeah.
That's another thing I've learned is, everything's hard.
Yeah.
If it's not hard, it's probably not worth doing. One of the another thing I've learned is if you're comfortable, you're probably not learning. You're not progressing. You don't learn anything. You think about anything, working out. It's uncomfortable, but it helps build a stronger body. Everything that's uncomfortable, I think you gain from. So the military is very good at making things uncomfortable and keeping you out of your comfort zone. And so I learned a lot from
It's
that.
another incredible lesson. Don't ever get comfortable.
No,
keep
absolutely,
growing.
Yeah, you're not growing if you're comfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Skip, another applicable learning lesson for those of us non-military that I want to cover with you now is you had to make a transition from an incredible career in the military to civilian life, let's call it. That's all about change management, mindset, etc. Can you walk us through that transition period? Because it's so applicable to change. A lot of people don't like change.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand how to shift their mindset, right? To rugged, grit, etc. Can we talk a little bit about that transition? How did you do it? You went from an incredible career to all of a sudden blank, right? Let's talk about it. How did that happen and what helped you?
Yeah, I feel like I'm still doing it. I retired 3 years ago, so May 2019. And it is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it still is. And here's why. You become very reliant on your team and your tribe and the people you serve with. And then you do everything for each other. You die for each other. Wow. And then the day that you leave, it's gone. And you think, you're still going to stay in touch and you're going to talk. People move on, and it's not that we're not friends anymore. They still have a job to do, and they don't have a lot of time for old guys like me. And so that's one of the things you just kind of have to accept. But I see, there's a lot of veterans have a lot of issues, and it's very hard for veterans. I didn't understand it until I actually experienced it. It is one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through, and that's because you lose it's like losing a family, an entire family. What I've found, I think the biggest thing that I have found that is helpful is developing new relationships, and nurturing those relationships. I think when people put themselves in a box and remove themselves, that's when they have even more issues. So, I feel like up here in Boston, I have a whole nother family up here. I have a bunch of friends. Some of our mutual friends, and I try to nurture those relationships now, because when I was in the military, I had very few friends that were not military. I really surrounded myself with those people and nobody else. And now I'm realizing more and more that is, relationships are one of the most important things in life. Not only my family relationship, which I've come to really rely upon, but also making new friends. And so that I think that's a key part of that. The other thing I found out was, I spent in the military. You're owned by the military, and I didn't want that in the civilian life. I didn't want to go to work for a company and have them dictate my life to me anymore, which is why I kind of went the entrepreneurial route. When I first retired, I worked for a company, and I was doing some security work for a presidential campaign that didn't go very far, and I was miserable. I didn't really like it. I just didn't enjoy it, and so. Now I'm part owners of a business. My business partner and I have a company in Southern Pines. We manufacture antennas and a few technical items, mostly for government use. And we kind of set our own destiny, which is nice.
That's cool. So I don't want to get to the entrepreneurship yet, if you don't mind.
Okay.
We're going to cover it. What was the role of family in your transition? You mentioned Shirley earlier, et cetera. Like, what role did the family play? Because you came to your family as being the core, the priority later, right? So during your transition, I know it's ongoing, but what role has that played in your transition?
So that was a transition in itself, because in the military, I didn't ask their permission or approval, or when I had to go, I had to go.
Yeah.
So that was a tough part of it. Was let's decide together as a family what our next step is going to be. When I took that job, the security job, we discussed it and said, is this, because we had to live separately for a time right afterwards because of it. And I told my wife, I said, this is our decision, but if you tell me no, then I'm not going to do it. This is kind of the first time that we were able to really choose our own destiny, make our own decision, without the military helping. And so we decided together that we were going to do this. We were going to live apart for a couple of months while I took this job, and we found out that was absolutely miserable. We did not like being apart. It was miserable for both of us. So. It was a good lesson learned, and from that I think we've become more close, and I think we rely on each other more and more.
Yeah, that's cool. The importance of having an incredible partner that supports you, right?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So let's talk about entrepreneurship. So a lot of people out there wonder, man, can I do that? Can I start a business, etc.? How did you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so. Coming out of that job, the guy basically, decided he didn't want to be president anymore, and so I was stuck without a job, and I decided that I was going to take a couple of months and just do what I enjoyed doing. I was fortunate that I have a retirement. I have a pension that I earn, so I could afford to take a couple of months and just figure out what I was going to do next. And in doing that, I met my business partner. We actually worked in the same organization but didn't know each other at the time. And I saw what he was making in his garage. He was building these incredibly high-tech antenna systems that were unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And I said, I think I can help you with this. and he said, okay, let's do this. And so we kind of expanded our company. We opened up an office front together, and we still struggle to make it work, but it's all on us, and we have some employees now, and it's good to to kind of see the business grow, bring new products lines in, and it's you really gotta hustle, and you gotta work hard, and that's what it's all about. It's the American dream, right?
So you took a risk,
Yeah.
right? You had a skill set, but you took a risk, right? You said you had a pension, so there was some money. That's good. I'm just walking people through this because a lot of people that I grew up with think this is hard, right? When you don't see something and don't know it, you can't be it. You can't do it. It's one of my old high school football coaches that you can't see it, you can't be it. So I want to have people see this. So a little bit of money from your retirement earned, then you said, wait, time out, I want to take a risk, right? You found somebody who was building something that said, I can help you build that. What was next? Did you guys go out and raise capital, or did you say, let's put our money together and let's go hustle?
No, we've been all self-funded. So we've raised no capital. We basically, our next step was we opened it up an office front, because a lot of what we do is training as well.
Awesome.
We both have a unique set of skills that we can pass on, especially to current military members. So we wanted a space that we can bring military guys in, train them, and be able to produce our products as well. And so that was kind of our vision. You got to have a vision. You're right. If you can't see it, you can't be it. And I think.
How did you guys get to the vision though? You had two folks who didn't know each other.
Yeah.
I mean, this is another textbook, right? Two people who didn't know each other. One had this idea. The other one had a skill set to advance the idea. How did you guys get to sort of like trust, and how do we figure this thing out? Talk me through that.
So,
because that's not easy.
Yeah, he's the brains of the operation. I'm not really sure what I bring, but hopefully it's some sort of value. So he built this thing. He saw a gap in capability, and he decided, okay, I think there's something here that I can build. He's an engineer. He went to MIT. He's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
And so he went out to his garage and started tinkering and testing, and he came up with this product. And what our product does is an antenna, but it's unlike any other antenna. It turns a piece of metal that it's attached to into an antenna, and it works with any frequency. Really any frequency that you throw at it, and it's just never been done. And so he identified a problem, worked on a solution, and came up with it. Where I come in, as I said, you're an engineer. You may not be the best public speaker. You may not be the best salesman, and I found out I'm not either. But I think I can help. With and I kind of led at a fairly senior level in the Army, and so I was used to, at that point, directing people and managing and
presenting.
Presenting. I presented to a number of people in Congress, high officials, and so I was comfortable in doing that. And so that was kind of the value that I saw that I could bring to the table. That, and then I had a background doing special operations and employing products like this, and so I could see the tactical use for it, and hopefully communicate that to people as we're bringing it to them.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you guys had to negotiate your way toward a joint venture that brought mutual benefit to each other. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it wasn't, and this was over several, a couple of weeks, and usually we'd play golf together, and I would kind of pitch him, hey, what do you think about this? And he would, kind of tell me what he was thinking, and it was, we've been together for 3 years now as business partners. And
what's the name of the company?
It's called Red Research Group out of Southern Pines, North Carolina. Yeah.
I love it, man. That's awesome. What an incredible story.
Yeah.
What has been your learning lesson so far? It's it's only been a couple of years, but so far about being an entrepreneur. What are the key and most important elements from your point of view?
I'll say never stop learning. That's, a lot of times we get, I was at the pinnacle of my career, and it's very easy to say, yeah, I'm good. I've made it this far. What else do I need to learn?
Yeah.
Well, then I got thrown into this whole entrepreneurial piece, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And so sometimes I still don't. So I'm still, trying to figure it out. Again, it's uncomfortable, but if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning, you're not getting better, you're not improving. So, I embrace the uncomfortable piece of it. Going to trade shows and speaking to strangers all day long. It's not something that I'm, real comfortable doing, but, if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be improving. So I think that's my biggest advice to anybody that wants to go the entrepreneurial route is continue to learn, enjoy being uncomfortable, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. The other thing you mentioned earlier today to me was you essentially have to go almost like sell and promote, right?
Yeah.
The product and how it could work, etc. That's just another really important skill. How do you communicate and how you transfer information and make it meaningful to the listener? That's another important skill set that I heard from you earlier.
Yeah, communication is it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and I do too. We don't all think alike, and so how do you tell somebody that doesn't think like you and get them to understand what you're thinking? And it's probably more of an art than a skill, and you learn through repetition and trial and error, and that's kind of what I've learned. And that's all selling is communicating. And I'm not the best salesman, so I'm still struggling. I'm still learning. I'm trying to figure this out. But you can't quit tomorrow. And eventually, if you keep practicing, you keep trying, it'll work out.
Man, I love that lesson. The other thing that I really love about what you said is repetition. A lot of people don't understand that you have to do things at least 5 to 7 times to get somewhat proficient at things, right? So it's another important lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me transition a little bit. There's another part of what you do that really that I want to cover, and I want to be a little delicate about it because some people have different points of views on this, which is totally fine. I encourage open dialogue. Or collaborative tension, as I like to call it. So you're a firearms instructor also.
Yeah.
And you do that as a company.
Mm-hmm.
So walk us through that.
Yeah. So typically when I teach firearms training, it's to people that have had some level. I'm not usually taking a basic student and teaching them how to shoot. Which that's challenging and all. Not that I couldn't. I've taught my son how to shoot, and I've taught my wife how to shoot. But here's when I look at training, I try to break it down. And what we say in the military is we like to crawl, then walk, and then we'll run. And you can't run without learning how to crawl first, and how to walk first. So there's a definite process there. You don't start out shooting super fast. You start out with the very basics. The other thing that I like to focus on is the basics. The organization I worked for, we were the best in the world at doing close quarters combat or room to room clearing. Best in the world. We basically wrote the manual on it. We aren't good like that because we have some cool tricks or things that nobody else knows. We're very, very, very good at the basics, and that's what makes us great at what we do. And the other thing is we train constantly. At least when I was in, we trained day, we trained night. We used to say we had a no-fail mission, meaning failure wasn't accepted, and so we trained as it was a no-fail mission. We used to always like to say you train as you fight, meaning we don't We don't cut corners.
Yeah.
We don't do things halfway. If we're going to train, we're going to do it just like it's for real. We're going to make it as real as possible. We're going to shoot live rounds. We're going to shoot live rounds close to each other because that's the way it's going to be in combat. Obviously, we're going to crawl, then walk, then run, so that we make it safe. But we're going to train as we fight, and I think those are kind of the key pieces in any kind of training is doing it like you're going to do it for real, and then doing it continuously. You can't, once you train and you learn something, you can't stop there. It's got to be continuous. You got to keep doing it to stay proficient at it.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to firearms, Skip, but I want to touch on this point. You have said this throughout this entire discussion. You have to do something and keep working at it.
Yeah.
That's a concept that I want to underscore for people, because success doesn't happen. Success is something you earn and work at it and never stop learning.
Yeah.
So I want to just underscore that point, because it has come up so many times in many of the folks I've interviewed, but now with you, and I appreciate you raising that. What I am going to ask you about, though, is you've also surrounded yourself with incredible people that have helped you, or you've all enabled each other to keep growing and keep succeeding. That's another important lesson that I'd love for you to touch base on. How did you do that? That just happened organically?
So again, the military is a volunteer organization. So even joining the military, everybody that's there at some point wanted to be there, and so, I mean, that was, first of all, surrounding myself with those people. And as I continued to move up and try out for different organizations, it becomes more and more volunteer based. So, and then, I kind of described our process it's a year-long process, job interview. Yeah. And so those people that are there that I'm surrounded with all very much want to be there. They earned the right to be there.
High performers.
And they worked incredibly hard and endured incredible pain to be there. Yeah. So, and that's not just in elite military. That's anywhere you go. Everybody did something to get to where they're at, and so I guess it depends on do they want to continue to be there. Then they have to keep performing. The other piece of that is we were motivated to bring everybody home, and whatever your job is, there's some motivation behind it. For us, for me, I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to make sure we were doing what America needed us to do, but ultimately I wanted to bring everybody home, and that's probably the thing I'm most proud of is that I brought everybody home that worked under me, and that's not because of me. That was because of us, because of our team and the guys. And I'll tell you this story. This is. I served, I was there on one of the very first missions after 9/11 into Afghanistan, and I deployed 11 times during my career in the combat situations. I've sort of loosely kept track of how many missions I did, and I'm guessing it's between 800 and 1,000 missions. A lot of those, were we drove to our target. And in those, I never hit an IED, not once, which was the biggest killer of American soldiers in Iraq. Yeah. And I've really kind of analyzed that is how is that possible? And people call it luck, but it wasn't luck at all. It was a combined team doing every single thing that we could to make sure that we brought everybody home. Yeah. And that's pretty special. Every mission we got, everybody had a piece to make sure that we got there, we did our job, and everybody came back. And it wasn't just, it started years before when we were training to do all that as well. All the training that we went through all went into that. So how do you tie? Obviously, it's military, but that ties into real world and everybody's lives. Everybody is part of a team. Whether it's your family, whether it's your coworkers, but when everybody, and you can inspire and motivate people to really put their 100% into everything, like your lives depend on it, because they do. That's your livelihood. That's how we make a living. And if you can do that, then you can do extraordinary things, seemingly impossible things. I mean, I still find it just absolutely amazing that I never saw an IED in all that time.
So first of all, I think part of that was providence, right? Who I call God, but I agree with you. Training. The part that I also want to underscore here is you touched on this other really important core notion. Back to the practice, hard work, team. Your family is a team. What an incredible concept.
Yeah.
We think about work all the time. We think about the military. We think about team building, sports. Man, your family is a team.
Absolutely.
What an incredible concept.
Yeah.
That's so true.
That's your biggest team, hopefully. I mean, I couldn't have, I was going for these long deployments, 4 months at a time, knowing that my team back at home had my back and they were keeping the house in order and paying the bills, and my son's going to school every day, and my wife's working hard. I mean, that's all part of that teamwork.
That's very cool, man.
Yeah.
So back to firearms. So very touchy subject today. I like to tell people that firearms don't harm people.
Yeah.
They're a tool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you talk about firearms to people in today's climate?
It can be tough. A lot of people have varying opinions, and a lot of people that don't believe in firearms, you're not going to convince them otherwise. Here's the way I look at it. For one, we have a constitutional right to have them, and it's not to defend ourselves, and it's not to hunt. It's not for sport. It's to defend our freedom. I really truly believe that is why it was written into our Constitution. It's to prevent an oppressive government from overtaking the people, and that's what it is. Yeah. Now, I think people need to be responsible with them, and obviously, you can kill people with anything. A gun. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a gun. Absolutely. A year ago we saw somebody drive a car through a crowd of people, and we wouldn't talk about banning vehicles. So firearms, it's a touchy subject because people do use them for evil, but personally, I want to be able to defend myself and my family. I'm always ready to defend, ourselves anywhere we go, and I find that very important. But I'd also say that if people are uncomfortable with them, do some training. Just go out, put yourself in that uncomfortable position. Be uncomfortable and learn something.
Back to the concept.
Exactly.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's funny. I read a lot about history, Skip, and I read recently the biography of President Andrew Jackson, and the reason why I wanted to read that is because the period leading up to his presidency was roughly 20 to 30 years after the Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War. It was very formative time in our country. Yeah. Very contentious. And many times in leading up to his presidency and during, there were, the Spanish attacking, the French attacking, the Britons, of course, in War of 1812, the Indian, Native Americans, etc., vice versa. And what is one of the common denominators of defense among all those peoples? Firearms. Yeah. They all protected themselves with firearms. And so giving people context to understand that, look, this is not necessarily, of course, protect your family, learn how to be proficient, but understand that there's a larger thought you got to think about. You have rights in this country that you don't have anywhere else in the world, and you better defend those. And there's many instances in our history where that was the case.
Yeah.
We're going to defend our rights. So appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go toward family. You are now an entrepreneur. You're traveling. You're here on a business trip. Appreciate you doing this, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Family. Let's talk about family. What has your family meant to you, because it transitioned, right now it's a priority, and how do you balance all those interests today? You're an entrepreneur, you're still training people, you're building a business, you got kids, remarried. How do you balance all that, and how do you put family first?
It's always tough, and it's always a balancing act. I think it comes down to prioritization. You know, you got to prioritize different things at different times.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I had a business trip and a couple of weeks ago, and my wife looks at business trips and says, "Oh, great, another." I lived with you gone for 25 or I guess we were married 20 years while I was in the military, and now here you are leaving again. And so I prioritized, and I said, well, why don't you come with me on this one? Which I haven't ever done before. And so, you gotta kind of stay in touch with your surroundings. And I mean, I think everybody needs alone time, and everybody, obviously, sometimes you gotta leave for work. But sometimes it's best to maybe put it off, maybe prioritize family a little bit, and then I've been pretty fortunate that, during COVID, I worked from home a lot, so we got to spend a lot of time together.
Yeah,
and then, that might buy me a little time so I can go do a work trip.
Yeah.
But then there's times where, hey, why don't you come with me? How can I make this work? How can we make this better? And it's always a challenge. I mean, everything's a challenge, but I think if you set priorities, I think my family is my top priority right now. I would quit my job before I quit my family. And there's give and take in that, and sometimes you have to assess your priorities and reassess. But it's a constant balancing act.
Yeah, love that, man. Love that answer. Priority, family first.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start transitioning and wrapping up here with some questions that I ask everybody. The first question I want to ask you is, what role does faith play in your life?
Yeah, I grew up going to church as a child, and so I grew up in a Christian family. As I've grown older and fought wars and I've seen the world, I'm less. I believe in a higher power, but I believe less in religion. And I think religion's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I think it helps keep people morally and ethically straight, which I think is the great thing about it. But I see, when you see wars fought over differences between religions, and I wonder, well, who's right here? Obviously we all have different beliefs, and so I look around at nature and think, okay, there's got to be a higher power here. I mean, I'm a small speck, and and this is kind of when I think about poor me, I had a rough day. Sometimes I'll go outside and I'll think, I am this tiny little speck in this. You look out to the stars in this universe. My problems aren't that big, and so that's kind of how I view faith, as just a bigger picture.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. It's funny. Religion, I always tell people I'm not a religious person. Be careful. Religion could be treacherous. I always like to tell people that I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I don't do religion. Religion is almost like a man-made trap in my view. So I always stress to people, look, build a relationship with Christ. That's what I've done. But I appreciate your answer, man. So next question. How do you define leadership?
So I actually teach a leadership course to some military guys. And so here's how I define it to them. I believe leadership is influencing others to accomplish a task, a goal, or a mission. And as I discuss this with guys, typically we think of leading down. You can lead up as well. Everybody has a boss. Whether it's your wife or or your boss at work. Sometimes you have to lead them as well, and that's all about communicating and getting your point across in a way that they're going to be, there's going to be some acceptance. That's what leadership is influencing and inspiring others to accomplish a common goal.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Next question.
All right.
What would you say to 12-year-old Skip if he were sitting with us?
I would say, I said this earlier, embrace the suck. All right. Embrace your hardships. Because, I don't regret anything. I don't regret anything in life. And, I told you about this failure I had in college, and that's a hardship. And sometimes I have to tell myself this now, today, when you're my age and you expect the hardship to be gone, and, there's always hardship. And so you just got to realize that, maybe this is the path that you're meant to be on. It's going to be hard. Nothing's easy. And usually the harder it is, the better it's going to be. So I think that's what I would tell 12-year-old Skip. Because 12-year-old Skip, I just lost my father.
Wow.
And, that was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to deal with. But again, embrace the suck.
Putting that into perspective. Huh?
Yeah.
Man. Last question. What is Skip's purpose?
Yeah, this is, you gave me the read ahead questions, and I've thought about
this one
for weeks, and I've struggled, and I was like, man, what is my answer going to be? And so if you would have asked me this, 3+ years ago, my purpose was to defend America. That was why I was put on this earth. And it was very clear. Like I said, I didn't necessarily know that I was going to survive it, but I was willing to do it because I really believe that was my purpose and why I was here. And now I made it through that. So here I've struggled for the last 3 years to figure out what is next. What is my purpose now? And it's funny. I was having a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, Jennifer.
Yep.
And her husband Pat, and we were sitting out on my back deck, and my wife told a story of being in a job interview in her early 20s, and the guy giving the interview said, well, what do you want in life? What's your goals in life? And she said, you know what, my goal is to be happy, and it kind of hit me in the head, and like that is my purpose now. My purpose is happiness for my wife, my family, and myself. To live a happy life.
Well, so look, I love Shirley, but that's a goal.
Yeah, it's a goal, but if that's my purpose is to give her happiness.
Oh, I love that.
And give my family happiness.
That's cool.
Then that gives me reason to. I read a book the other day, and they talked about people in the Holocaust. Why didn't they commit suicide? This what kept them going. And I thought about that. What do I get up for in the morning? What keeps me going? And it's my family, and it's making them happy. So that's awesome. That's my purpose.
Awesome. Purpose. Look, man, I'm so with you on this. That's my legacy, my family, right? Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Skip, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd want to say, or?
I'm incredibly appreciative of your friendship and our relationship, and I think I'm absolutely honored that you would even ask me to come on here and speak. It really means a lot to me.
Appreciate you. For those of you listening and watching, I have come to know Skip recently, and I'm just blown away. One of my biggest moments, and I'll share it with the listeners, when the first night we met at the event, we met at a Medal of Honor event, and here's all these incredible people in their outfits, their uniforms. And I was surrounded by heroes, including you. And I told Samantha on the way home, one of my most impressive takeaways of the night was, here's this gentleman we're sitting with, who's probably one of the most dangerous people in the room, not in uniform, in civilian clothing, and he's the most humble person at the table. And so that's my image of you, an extremely accomplished person, but with the heart of a humble person. And so I'm honored to have you here, man. So thank you. And for those of you who joined us, check us out, www.davidamorales.com, Grit Machine DNA, and check out Skip doing his company. What was it? Red
Research Group.
Red Research Group. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you guys have an incredible day. God bless everybody.
Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su camino, y pronto nacerá la paz en tu corazón. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor, y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor, y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su